How many of you have animals at home? I know I personally have 6 dogs waiting for me at home. But did you know, according to the Humane Society of the United States, that millions of animals, just like yours at home and mine as well, die due to animal abuse? Becoming more aware of animal abuse can actually help you prevent it. Today I'm going to talk to you about 3 forms of animal abuse. First is dog fights. The second is going to be animal testing, and the third is neglect. The first one I'm going to talk to you about is the most violent form of animal abuse, which is dog fights. Dog fights are horrific fights between and matches between 2 dogs that are specifically bred and trained for dog fights. The most common one that a lot of people know about are pit bulls. Dog fights have abuse in and outside of the ring. Inside the ring, dog fights can last an hour to 2 hours and only stop when one dog either gives up or just can't continue fighting. Now, PETA's website provides us with an officer's observation of a ring where dogs had been fighting and saying what he saw. He said that one of the things he saw was dogs that were missing half their jaws from dog fights and others that were almost completely covered in scar tissue. Now, dog fights don't just have the abuse inside the ring, but outside the ring as well. When dogs are of no more use to their owners and when they can't fight anymore, either they're too old, too tired, or they just can't recover, they're killed, or if they're females, they're bred and forced to breed until they can't anymore, and then they're killed as well. PETA's website also gives us an example of Michael Vick, who was a former Atlanta Falcon quarterback, and he was convicted of animal abuse and dog fights in 2007. And they gave us a few examples of how he ended up disposing of his dogs when they were of no use to him, which includes electrifying them, drowning them, and even shooting them. Now, dog fights may be one of the most violent forms of animal abuse, but they're not the only ones that are cruel. The next form of animal abuse I'm going to be talking to you about today is animal testing. Over 100 million animals are tortured and killed in U.S. labs every year. After the animals are tested, a lot of the times they're killed because they're of no use anymore. There is an act that's in place called the AWA, which is the Animal Welfare Act, which is in place to help provide animals with safety from inhumane treatment. Yet, labs that just test on mice, rats, birds, amphibians, and reptiles are exempt to this act. There are a couple types of testing that they do in animal testing labs, and I'm going to talk to you about 2 today. The first type of testing is acute toxicity testing. This is normally tested on rats and mice, and what they do with this kind of testing is they take a group of them and they give all of them what is said to be a lethal dose of the chemical that they're going to be testing. What they do is they wait for half of the animals to be tortured in agonizing pain until they are dead, and then wait for the other half, and after one half is dead, they take the other half, and they end up killing them. And then they analyze their insides to see why they lasted longer than the other half. The second type of animal testing I'm going to be talking to you about today is reproductive development toxicity. This is normally tested on rabbits and rats. In this type of testing, they take pregnant animals and they insert in them the chemical that they're going to be testing. And then they wait until they're right about ready to deliver, and then they kill them and take their fetuses and analyze them and see what chemical caused and what reactions they had from being in the mother's womb. Now, some people might say, and of course you might say, oh, well, this has to be good. There has to be a reason for this to be happening. That has to be flawless for them to be doing this kind of torturing animals. But actually, there's a lot of faults. Did you know that 92% of experimental drugs tested on animals that seem to be okay for animals turn out to either be too dangerous for humans or just plain don't work? Animal testing might be legal, but this next topic that I'm going to be talking to you about, which is neglect, is definitely not. Neglect, according to the petabuse.com, is one of the top forms of animal abuse in the United States. Now, what is neglect, you might say? Well, neglect is the absence of necessities for living for animals, which is water, food, shelter, and even veterinary care. There are a few causes of neglect. Well, I'm going to talk to you about 4 today. The first one is just plain boredom. Let's say you go to the store and you get a new toy or a knick-knack or something, and you're super excited about it. It's great, it's new, it's fun, and then you just get bored of it. It loses its shine. So you put it off into the closet and you forget about it for a few months, and people end up doing this with animals too. But unlike inanimate objects, animals don't just sit in the corner and collect dust. They starve, become emaciated, and a lot of times they end up dying. The second kind of neglect I'm going to be talking to you about is just plain ignorance. When officers that are dealing with animal abuse cases go and observe an area and talk to the owners about animal abuse, they let them know, this is what you're doing wrong, this is what you need to fix, and we're going to be coming back in a few weeks and we're going to see what you've improved on. These type of cases, a lot of the time they improve when the people come back because they just don't know how to take care of their animal. They want to make sure that they have the necessities, they just didn't know how. Unlike the third case I'm going to be talking to you about, which is when people just don't care. Let's say you just aren't an animal person, you don't like animals, and one of your family members dies and you get stuck with the family dog or the cat or rabbit or something, and you just don't want to deal with the responsibilities, so you push it off to the side and you just forget about it because you don't want to deal with it and you just don't care. A lot of the time, these animals become victims of neglect. And the fourth and final form of neglect that I'm going to be talking about with you today is money issues. A lot of people get animals when they can afford it, when they're privileged, and they can even spoil their pets. And then something happens. They lose their job, or they become bankrupt, or even foreclosed on. And they just can't give the pets the necessities that they need to survive. And instead of giving them to a shelter or someone that can actually take care of them, they end up keeping them and trying their best, but end up making them victims of neglect. Now, animal abuse is not always out in the open, and it's definitely not the prettiest subject to be talking about, but I wanted to make sure that you were informed on animal abuse, and of course the three types that I talked to you about today, which is dog fights, which are violent torture contests that are a lot more common than you think. Animal abuse, animal testing, that may give you the best moisturizer in the world and may give you the best complexion, but at the cost of animals' lives. And the third is neglect that may have several causes, but is definitely never okay, and it's no excuse. If you ever want to find more information about animal abuse or what you can do, you can go to www.humanesociety.org. Thank you.